Allora, buongiorno a tutti, allora vi preghiamo di prendere posto, iniziamo così la conferenza stampa, presentiamo i nostri ospiti, il regista John Favreau, Gwyneth Paltrow, Robert Downey Jr. e Terrence Howard. Allora, buongiorno, innanzitutto abbiamo qualche informazione tecnica da darvi, a nome di Universal quindi benvenuti alla conferenza stampa di Ironman. Vi ricordo che il film esce in anteprima mondiale, nel senso che uscirà soltanto il giorno dopo negli Stati Uniti il 1° maggio, quindi in Italia uscirà il 1° maggio in 500 sale e negli USA uscirà il giorno successivo, cioè il 2. Adesso, mentre aspettiamo di dare le cuffiette a loro per la traduzione simultanea, io farò una domanda a questo punto in inglese, così non perdiamo tempo. I will ask you a question in English because they are bringing you the translation of earphones. Iron Man is a great movie. I mean, it's a comedy and a superhero movie, and then address some interesting subjects such as weapons and war. I want to ask you, how did you achieve the idea of comedy in a movie like this? Because it's a very entertaining. It reminds me from time to time of old slapstick comedies. So it's a great surprise and a wonderful movie. How did you achieve this? All you and all the actors.
I guess I'll start.
Scusate, la domanda, vi traduco la domanda, e la domanda riguarda il fatto. Okay.
Good. The tone of the film was something that we arrived at through performance. There wasn't really a locked script when we started filming. We had a basic script. We knew what every scene had to be, but the cast was given tremendous freedom to have fun with the material, to paraphrase, to do some improvisation, and then certain scenes were scripted specifically, but we wanted the film to have sort of a light tone. There are many, many superhero movies, and we wanted ours to not be a dark film. We wanted it to be fun and a little subversive in its humor. And that allowed us to present the film against a backdrop that's a little bit more realistic politically than other movies that we have now compared to ours. As far as the humor, my background is independent film and is comedy, and anytime we made choices in scenes, I always leaned towards finding opportunities for a little bit of humor.
Sì, credo che sempre. Posso parlare in inglese? Okay. Yes, the first part is I do think that behind every great man is a great woman, always. And what was the second part? Yes, Pepper. My role in the film, I thought, was very important in that, in a way, she's Tony's conscience. She's a very loyal, very giving person, and although she could probably use a few boundaries, she's very non-judgmental, and I think that that's an important quality between, well, a man and a woman, or in any relationship, you know, to be supportive without being judgmental. I think that lets the other person in the relationship really be able to achieve what they need to achieve in life.
Yes, from my perspective, we wanted this to be first and foremost entertainment. So I think that I'm not a filmmaker who has a point of view politically that is unchanging. My politics change with every newspaper I read. So I didn't want to present something that was where I was preaching to the American public or the world. What I did want to do, though, is reflect the realities of the times and the anxieties that we're feeling back home because of where we find ourselves, especially since 9/11, but specifically in the more recent years as there's a lot of political debate back home with the elections coming up. And the idea of these weapons and the things that we've brought into the world through technology, creating problems, and that the world is a very complicated place and has become more complicated recently, was an idea that I thought really lent itself to Iron Man based on the 40 years of comic books. Remember when we first found Tony Stark in the comic books, it was 40 years ago and he was a weapons designer, it was Vietnam. Now we updated it to Afghanistan, and the idea that there are consequences to everything anybody does in the world and that you have to be thoughtful about these consequences is a lesson that Robert learns through the character Tony Stark. And there is a change of character, an enlightenment that happens, and that's a very fun storyline to play because it's a very old myth of a person reinventing themselves based on a reawakening of their conscience. And I think superhero movies work best when they channel the old myths, and Robert certainly played that up quite well.
I'll answer the first 9 questions first. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of simple, you know. I went to the Marvel headquarters, and I'm looking at all these posters of Spider-Man and X-Men. And down at the end of the hall, there's John, and we start talking about Iron Man. And I left there, and I thought, you know what, I should really do one of these. And they didn't necessarily agree, but John and I started talking. I was in New York, and he was in L.A., and we started having these conversations, and we kind of really got to know each other. So anyway, there was a screen test, and I wound up doing fairly well at that. Terrence was actually, you were already on board, weren't you? They had already talked to Terrence about being in it. But I think for the 3 of us, I'll just talk briefly on behalf of the talent. It's like, you know, Gwyneth or Mr. Howard and myself, you know, we pour our hearts into these characters and roles, and then they come out 6 or 9 months later, and 18 people see them. And we had kind of agreed that we'd like to do good movies that will also be able to have a wide audience and try to bring that sentiment to a movie like Iron Man. Seemed really fun, you know?
Yeah.
What do you think, Howard?
Yeah. In lieu of what he's saying, you know, 90% of the films you do as an actor, and Jon Favreau being a part of this, half of the time the films are rarely seen because, you know, the labors of love never seem to have the marketability. So it's wonderful when you're able to combine a labor of love with wonderful actors like Jeff Bridges and this entire cast, and then ultimately people to enjoy it and for it to make money. You know, it's the best of both worlds, basically.